ended up on the banking committee. Because banking is where housing and mass transit ended up, and we were building a mass transit system. But I was in the banking committee with George Shultz, Arthur Burns, and Paul Volcker, came to say that the economic regime that had been established at Bretton Woods in 1944 under a Keynesian economic worldview, which had worked from 1944 to 1973, just about every nation on the planet was growing at from 6 to 10%. And we had a stable global economy. We had rebuilt Europe and Japan. America was booming. And I still don't know why they came to the banking committee and said they wanted to end the Bretton Woods agreements. Now, that's a good doctoral dissertation for somebody. Figure out why, or if you figured out, tell me. Because nobody in the Congress knew what they were talking about. And but these three economic giants were sitting there telling these poor little dumb congressmen, myself included, that this was good for the world. Well, nobody asked any questions, but I always, this is good for you students, don't ever be afraid to ask the dumb question. And I said, excuse me, sir, but if the dollar is not tied to gold, and everybody's tied, the economy is tied to the dollar, aren't people going to play politics with our currency? And Arthur Burns took a puff on his pipe and said, young man, you'll soon learn that the dollar does not need you to defend it. And I was like, shut up, colored boy, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's the way I took it. But I never forgot that, and I've been reading about, I got interested in economics that day. And that day, the price of oil was $2.50 a barrel. And that was in September of 1973. By April 1974, oil was $30 a barrel. By July and August, it had gotten up to $60 a barrel. It has been up as high as $140 a barrel. The global economy has been on an oil roller coaster, and I'm not saying that everybody, I'm not one of these gold bugs that said everybody ought to keep gold, but there needs to be some economic regime that everybody agrees to that stabilizes a global economy and allows everybody to grow.
Right.
We now have a global economy that is dysfunctional.
Right.
We have more money out of circulation than we have in circulation. And I'm talking about, this is Forbes and The Economist are not liberal magazines. And Forbes estimated that there was at least $21 trillion in tax havens, and possibly as much as $40 trillion. Now, $40 trillion, the United States is $16 trillion, Europe is $17 trillion, China is $7 trillion, Japan is $5 trillion. That's the equivalent of taking all the major, to have $35 or $40 trillion sitting on the sideline, not working, not creating jobs. That's the reason people are fighting in Syria and in Egypt.
That's right.
The Arab Spring was not about democracy. There was a fellow who had a push cart who went to his government in Tripoli to get a permit. And some bureaucrat dusted him off, brushed him off. And they had done that 3 or 4 times, and they wouldn't give him permission to operate his push cart. And so he poured a pile of gasoline on himself and set himself afire. Normally, that would be a non-incident. But in today's world, there must have been 25 or 30 people standing around there with called it about democracy. It was not about democracy, it was about jobs.
That's right.
See? And Egypt is about jobs, and Syria is about jobs. And pretty soon Nigeria will be about jobs. Nigeria is graduating 1 million college students a year with no jobs. And Nigeria has good schools. I mean, one of the kids, Nigerians here came to stay with me to try to get into Georgia Tech. And she was so African, country African. I was embarrassed to take him on campus. And I bought him some clothes and, you know, got him a haircut and tried to shape him up a little bit. And I prayed that, you know, he would make it. Damn if he didn't become a calculus tutor